Tonight, a long wait may be over for Otago Girls High School. Southern hospitals gear up for next week's industrial disruption. And a new challenge for Queenstown's thrill seekers. Good evening. There were strong indications today that Otago Girls High School is about to get the go-ahead for its long-awaited redevelopment. This follows a public outcry in Dunedin late last year when rebuilding funds were found for 3 boys' schools, but Otago Girls missed out. Today, the Under-Secretary for Education, Noel Scott, hinted strongly that work on rebuilding should start soon. Kathy Graham has the details.
Otago Girls High was the Under-Secretary's first stopover. It's been lobbying for new buildings for a decade, and last year was a priority until the moratorium put paid to the development program. Part of the school property was demolished months ago to make way for the proposed new buildings.
The situation with this demolition and some of the substandard buildings and facilities that I've seen indicate that the sooner the redevelopment starts and gets underway, the better.
So we could be looking at a start early in this year?
I would think that's a strong possibility.
The Under-Secretary and his party went on to inspect 2 more secondary schools with pressing accommodation problems. At King's High, a feasibility study into virtually rebuilding the school went ahead in spite of the moratorium. That's ready to present to the department next month. The school's been faced with a role that's virtually doubled in the past 8 years, leaving it so short of space, 3 more prefabs have been set up on the tennis courts. Did he offer you anything? Did he say anything that might...
He certainly said that he would be going back to bat on our behalf.
At Queen's, it's the same story, a desperate plea for more space, for Jim in particular.
Yeah, these kids here have nowhere to go if it's wet, so we have to hire or haul.
With the roll now at just on 900, numbers have outstripped resources, leaving the school short of 7 classrooms. The officials' last stopover was Makandra Intermediate, where the committee's been lobbying for 10 years to have its 50-year-old buildings upgraded. They're badly maintained and old-fashioned for today's teaching requirements.
Well, we want the whole school remodelled, and the school committee has worked very hard over the last 10 years to try and get something done and haven't really been successful.
Do you think you can make a case today?
Well, we're hopeful that we can, yes.
The outcome of the visit remains to be seen. At the very least, the schools have the satisfaction that the Under-Secretary's seen their needs for himself.
The Otago Area Health Board is desperate for volunteers to help at Cherry Farm Psychiatric Hospital during next week's planned 24-hour national stoppage by health workers. About 3,000 workers, including nurses, may strike, and the effects will be felt at all hospitals throughout the south. Michael Lynch reports.
100 caring people are needed urgently to help with meals, help with cleaning up, and just generally provide company for the patients of Dunedin's Cherry Farm Hospital during next week's big strike. By and large, other hospitals in the south, especially in country areas, have enough volunteers to tide them over, but not so Cherry Farm.
They need not have any concern. There's a doctor and a nurse at all times in all of the villas. We're not dealing with any acute patients. These are just people who need help in those simple things.
The unions involved, from the nurses to the PSA, claim they've solid support for the strike, which ultimately covers the whole range of health funding. But there's solid opposition from some boards. In Southland, they're calling the strike, which starts at 7 a.m. on Tuesday, cowardly and irresponsible. But the nurses disagree.
They have to do it because they believe in that the health system will disappear unless they take some action.
But the public will suffer. Hospitals have already stopped much surgery to get bed numbers down by Tuesday. Invercargill's Q Hospital is cutting 18 wards down to 4. And if a planned 48-hour strike goes ahead a week later, some could really suffer.
If we lose the full 3 days, we anticipate having 20 major cases deferred, 80 minor cases, and already we've had 550 outpatients visits cancelled just for this Tuesday.
If the government cuts continue, those people will be waiting much, much longer in the future anyway.
But there's still a bit of time left to settle the arguments, and people on both sides of the issue are optimistic for a settlement.
The noses of Tainui residents are being used to monitor the smell coming from Dunedin's sewage treatment plant. Selected residents are keeping a daily record of the smell and noting the strength on a scale of 1 to 5. Mark Price has been checking it out.
Each day at 8 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, Tainui resident Les Johnson tests the air. He lives over the road from the Dunedin Pollution Control Plant, which treats all of the city's sewage. His concern and that of his neighbours is the smell it produces. On a 5-point scale ranging from calm, no odour, to strong, continuous odour, he and 2 other residents are keeping track of drainage board attempts to arrest the smell.
We had young people over in the scout hall or the cub hall opposite us here being nauseated with it and being sent home. People on the bowling greens and the golf courses being nauseated with it, and the residents over a large area here, about the same effect, unacceptable. Penetrating your house and your clothing and your furnishings.
The bad smell comes from several parts of the plant. A weir where sewage flows from the settling tanks, the first stage of the drying process for solid material, the presses where solids are readied for the incinerator, and the stack from the incinerator.
We had thought 12 months ago that we had the problem pretty well under control. That has proved not to be the case, and so we're now looking further afield and will undoubtedly be getting involved in procedures, the installation of other equipment and processes that will give us better control on the odours.
Mr Johnson hopes the monitoring program will show that planned improvements to the plant make the neighbourhood a more pleasant place in which to live.
For years, New Zealand musicians have complained how hard it is to get their records played on commercial radio. But this week, they've got nothing to complain about, at least in North Otago. Oamaru's Radio Waitaki is doing its bit with a week of New Zealand-only music. And as Sally Pears found out, it's not just the musicians who are loving it.
Spotlighting New Zealand music. Radio Waitaki.
If you tune into Oamaru's Radio Waitaki this week, you'll hear familiar New Zealand music from past and present. Earlier this year, Radio Waitaki ran a Buy New Zealand promotion, and the listeners did just that. So Radio Waitaki decided to take things a step further and dedicate all their airtime this week to New Zealand music.
They are muscle bound and on display.
It was a big step, and there were those who were sceptical the small station could pull it off.
Had a great response from the listeners and from the local businesses in town. Had a number of phone calls to the station and people popping in and saying, good on you, and good to see people giving Kiwi music a fair go.
When I was drifting down, it pulled me up again. And it's you I love you too.
A lot of hard work has gone into the promotion. Program director Craig Bodey looked through music charts dating back 30 years, then playlisted all the New Zealand tracks that had made the charts. That includes everything from Ray Columbus and Mr. Lee Grant, right through to biggies like The Melting Pot and Sweet Lovers. Some of the golden oldies may not be so well known, but the listeners are loving it.
But it's you I know, no one else will do.
A summer fad that's taken Queenstown by storm has now taken a step further, or higher. A couple of thousand people have thrown themselves off the historic Kawerau Bridge attached to a bungee cord. Now, Kim Hurring reports there's a bungee jump that's twice the height.
Queenstown's always been a trend-setting town where tourists take risks they never would at home. So it's not surprising the latest way to terrify yourself silly is going down well. Around Queenstown, if you haven't bungeed, you're nothing.
A good feeling, just a lot of breeze and wind. Before you know it, you're on the bottom and it's all over.
I was terrified, but I did enjoy it.
And the latest way to do it is naked, except for a bit of body art.
Okay, look at the bridge!
Look up, Lee! Look up!
An 80-year-old has jumped, paraplegics and a blind person has done it. But now the bungee jumping boundaries are being pushed even further. A new jump in the back country is twice the height of the old one.
There's nothing like free falling from a bridge.
What do you think makes people want to do this?
I don't know, the fact that it's there.
This is the so-called skipper's champagne jump. A chopper flight is followed by the sought-after shots of adrenaline and then a champagne breakfast. 91 metres straight down. That's just a couple of stories short of the Bank of New Zealand building in Wellington. How much did you pay for this?
$350.
Do you think it's worth it?
Every cent.
You're not even allowed to take on this jump until you've already tried what's now known as the baby bridge, and the organisers are already looking for new ways to bungee next summer.
Never in a million years. Now the temperatures on what's been a much warmer day around the south. At 3 o'clock it was sunny at Half Moon Bay and 16 degrees. Invercargill was fine with 23 and the high tomorrow of 18. Gore sunny 25, Balclutha sunny and 22, Dunedin partly cloudy and 18, and for the start of festival weekend Dunedin tomorrow 19 degrees. Palmerston sunny and 19, Oamaru 19. Lumsden had 20 degrees, Queenstown fine 21, Wanaka windy 23, Alexandra sunny, the high today of 28 degrees. Taianau it was also sunny and at 23. Have a great weekend, whatever you're doing. We'll be back on Monday night. Good night.